When you have trauma in birth, it takes 30 or 40 years or some more just to get to where you can love and trust again, really love and trust. And we want this world to be populated with loving, trusting people, because part of what we know is that if you can love and if you can trust, you're not going to grow up and build factories that destroy our Earth Mother with pollution. You're not going to employ people where you harm their human rights and destroy their hearts and souls in getting the most amount of work for the least amount of pay. You're going to uphold these basic human rights to health, happiness, well-being, and family, and creativity. We want every human being to have a chance to live their optimal, loving, trusting self, and that begins at birth.
Welcome to our special time together. It's a pleasure, as always. This week, we have a wonderful interview about birth, the very way we all came into the world. It will make you think back to your birth story, wonder what happened to your placenta, or if you're a parent, remember your birth experience. And if you're waiting to bring children into the world, it will inspire you to consider how to do it in a way that's optimal for you as parents and the soul of the child. It's such an important part in the future that we're creating, as our babies are our youngest citizens, our future of humanity. We know how powerful trauma is and what a part it plays in the destruction of everything we care about the most, unconsciously mostly. I was in a friend's yoga workshop, Hana Muse, last year, where she asked us in pairs to share what change we'd make in the world if we could make one. My partner in the exercise had some very clever policies, whereas I simply said, as the premise of the question was that we could do absolutely anything, that I would simply remove all our ancestral trauma. Can you imagine what it'd be like if we all had a clean slate? What decisions would we make about how we do things? What structures and systems would we build? How would we relate and connect to each other? One thing I see that is very powerful is how much we now know about trauma and the way it shapes us. And I'm excited to see how that impacts the future. As parents have never known so much about it and had so many ways of healing it available. And likewise, hearing teenagers talk about triggering and if something is woke or reinforcing patterns is quite something. I'm starting the next round of my leadership program at the end of next month. It's called Presence Mentoring, and it's a 6-month one-to-one program where we work on limiting beliefs, emotional and subconscious patterning, and awaken new qualities so that you're more free to be who you truly are and create what you're here to create in the world. There is more to it than that, and if you're interested, you can go to www.amisha.co.uk/leadership and find out more. I have space for a couple of more people to join by the end of the month. It's a totally personalized journey and one that can take you very far in yourself and beyond if you're committed. Remember, if you love these podcasts and are benefiting from the extraordinary education our guests and these topics bring, then please do either become a monthly patron or join Presence Collective. To become a patron, you choose the amount and join our monthly community video calls. You can do this if you click on community and support on our website, www.thefutureisbeautiful.co. Thank you to Louise Hess, our newest patron, for your support. And if you want to join Presence Collective, click on courses and you will find everything you need there. This month on Presence Collective, we're exploring the art of sacred activism. How can you be inspired, effective, and practical agents of change, where you live the perfect way for you to contribute to the collective well-being of the world, bringing all aspects of yourself to everything you are and what you do? How do you work out what is the right way for you to contribute? And how do you know when you're doing enough, or in the case of some of you, too much? We explore finding the right way of contributing to our collective story for you, the complexities that make it challenging, how to approach the times we live in from a place of centeredness and non-reactivity, and how to feel good about what you're doing whilst remaining open to always learning more as everything, including you, evolves. I also want to let you know that this year we're collaborating on a project with St. Ethelburgers. Many of you enjoyed the episode with Justine Huxley very much, and so it's a great honour to be creating some podcast episodes and live events in London for a series we've called Listening to Each Other, Listening to the Earth. You can find out more about that in the show notes and also get details of an event in London on February the 7th that I'll be speaking at for part of their Radical Resilience series, which is about deep adaptation. The event is called What If Climate Crisis Was Our Greatest Teacher? They offer free tickets to their events for any refugees and asylum seekers if you want to extend the invitation to anyone who may wish to come. Back to this week's episode, which is all about birth. This is a currently much discussed topic amongst my friends, as the options of birth strike, freezing eggs, sperm donors, IVF, fertility, adoption, home births, and hospital births are such big conversations right now. Despite those that have the luxury of all these options and choice, birth is happening all around us each day. There are nearly 400,000 babies born each day throughout the world. For example, on the 1st of January 2020, there are an estimated 392,078 babies born, with the highest numbers being in India, China, Nigeria, Pakistan, and Indonesia. In 2018, 2.5 million newborns died in just their first month of life, about a third of them on the first day of life. Among these children, most died from preventable causes such as premature birth, complications during delivery, and infections. In addition, more than 2.5 million babies are born dead each year. There are also nearly 300,000 women dying in pregnancy or childbirth around the world each year, which is roughly 800 mothers a day. Many of these could be prevented with proper access to healthcare, nutrition, education, and community. My guest today is Ebu Robin Lim, who is a Filipino-American midwife, mother, and grandmother, and founder of Bumi Sehat, a non-profit organization in Indonesia and the Philippines. Ibu means mother in Indonesian Bahasa. Bumi Sehat's powerful work has been growing over the past 25 years. For example, in 2018, 146,000 people received health, education, and human services, including disaster response. On average, 2 babies are born in Bumi Sehat clinics each day, and all of this is done without costing the families anything. Along with devoted team members, Ebu Robin has been an early responder to many disasters in Indonesia, such as post the devastating 2004 tsunami, the evacuations whilst volcano Mount Agung was very active, and following the earthquakes, as well as following earthquakes in Haiti and Nepal, and in the aftermath of the super typhoon in the Philippines. Ebu Robin's passion is human rights in childbirth. She believes that each individual is an essential piece of peace. Therefore, by protecting the mothers in childbirth and the newborns, our smallest citizens of Earth, we may build peace, one baby, one mother, one family at a time. Her books include Ecology of Gentle Birth, After the Baby's Birth, Wellness for Mothers, and Placenta, the Forgotten Chakra. In this conversation, we explore the question, how can our experience of being born into this world change how we take care of it? I hope that this conversation inspires you. Welcome to The Future is Beautiful, with me, your host, Amisha Gadiali. On this show, we explore the weave between politics, spirituality, creativity, and sustainability. It's time for us to move beyond silos and into an integrated way of being. Every one of us has ideas and personal experiences to share that can lead us to a brighter future. This is the revolution. Despite the challenges we face as a global community or the pressures that we meet in our daily lives, when we stop and dare to dream, to ask ourselves the big questions, and to share what we are already doing, we create the future that we wish to wake up for. That future is beautiful. Ebu Ibu Robin, thank you so much for inviting me here into this beautiful center that you've created and sitting down to have this conversation. It's such a delight to share your story and the incredible work that you're doing here with The Future is Beautiful.
Thank you. Selamat pagi. I should say that this childbirth center and community health center is not something I created alone. We have over 50 people here on the staff. Each one of them plays an essential role in making this the most beautiful, loving place for healing and for childbirth that we can possibly manifest. This is one of 6 centers. We have 2 in the Philippines. One is soon to open, and one has been open since the big typhoon in 2013, Typhoon Haiyan. We have a center in Aceh since the tsunami happened in 2004. We have a center in Papua, which just opened on Christmas Day with our first baby being born there, was really beautiful. We have in Lombok in the disaster zone. So we have 4 in Indonesia and 2 in the Philippines.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I wonder if you can share like a little bit of a perspective on what's happened with birth in the West as well as here in Indonesia and in the countries that you're working in, and kind of where that disconnect that has made it less safe and less of an initiation for women has come in.
Well, if we look at childbirth historically, women cared for women. About 200 or so years ago, the business of medicine began to really sprout up in Europe, and then was exported to the New World, which was the New World then was the United States and the Americas, when European settlers started to come in, starting in Europe and then exporting the same kind of ideas to the United States and to North America. There was this kind of a takeover where, bless the men, we love men, and they make great fathers. But when people started to feel that childbirth could be a business for them, and men started to take over the territory that was always the territory of women, childbirth then got to be seen as a pathology. Not because it needed to be a pathology, but because you can make more money on it that way. For example, feeding babies infant formula versus breastfeeding. We know that breastfeeding is best feeding, but you can't make money off of breastfeeding. So you make a product and then you sabotage mothers breastfeeding so that then they have to buy the product, to the detriment of the health of children internationally for many, many generations now. So what happened is in the United States, for example, and also in Europe, they started burning witches. And who are the witches? The witches were the midwives. But you could be burned at the stake because your neighbor in the next farm had a baby and you brought her a meal. So it actually became a matter of survival for women to stop nurturing women. There was an epidemic of this cruelty toward women for helping women. And so culturally, it became ingrained in women to not help each other as a survival technique. Not so much in Asia and in Africa, but for sure in Europe and North America. And then the American Medical Association, they formed, they became strong, they excluded women from medical schools. Of course, now women do go to medical school and they get trained to be very much like men. And again, nothing against the sacred masculine, but I will say that it didn't work for women. And women all over the world started crying out, saying, starting, I would say, in the 70s, saying, where are our women taking care of us? We want our childbirth experience to be private, respectful. We want it to be loving and kind. And of course, we don't want to die and we don't want our babies to die, but there can be a balance. And women started crying for this balance. So the balance is the balance of good science, because, for example, this morning, we had a baby that had some distress. So we put some oxygen tubing in the mother's nose and we asked her to take deep breaths. And with the help of a little oxygen, her baby's fetal distress, the heartbeat that was going down, 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 normalized, and she gave birth beautifully. She had an incredible spiritual experience as well as a profound physical experience. So at Bumi Sehat, we've tried to find a balance between science, the science of medicine, used only when necessary and used wisely, respect for nature, because we know that childbirth is a natural process, is ancient. As long as there have been mammals, people have reproduced sexually, including humans, and quite successfully. And then, so we have good science, wise science, respect for nature. And that with those 2 feet, you can walk. If you stand on 1 foot, the foot of science alone, look at the United States. Since 1986, there's been an increasing number of mothers dying in childbirth, using the most money on technology and the least kind, loving, juicy, midwife-led childbirth that you could possibly have are what most of the women in the United States experience. So women are dying in childbirth in the United States, even though they use technology to almost to a fault, of course, to a fault. If technology was the answer, women would not be dying in the United States. If spending a lot of money on technology was the answer, but it's apparently not. So respect for nature is the second foot. And with 1 foot, you're going to fall down. Even if you do yoga and you do tree pose, sooner or later, you've got to put your other foot down. Even if you're an incredible, fit yogi. So the other foot is respect for nature. And with 2 feet, you can walk, but you can still fall down. So our third foot that we really feel is the most important foot is what we call in Indonesia adat, which means the spirit or could be your religious life, your traditions. What makes you feel safe? For example, our Muslim mothers come and they know they can find prayer rugs here and they can pray, and the midwives will invite them. When it comes time to pray, during those times of day, they'll remind them and say, hey, when you're in labor, you can pray still. And interestingly enough, the position of getting on your hands and knees and putting your behind in the air and your face close to the earth and praying like that is one of the best positions you can do if you want to turn the breech baby. So with our moms that actually pray as the Muslims pray, they don't have a high incidence of breech. They have much more normal, vertex, simple, uncomplicated births. We have a Hindu temple here, which women leave their offerings. We sing Gayatri Mantra. This morning we sang Gayatri Mantra, Om Bhurrbhuva Swaha, when the baby was crowning. So the first things that she hears are prayers from her family so that she knows that she's a miracle. All the midwives know some Christian songs. Most of us only know Amazing Grace, so we have a lot of baby girls named Grace. So whatever the family's religion is, the Buddhist prayers, the Hindu prayers, the Muslim prayers, this is what we sing when the baby's crowning. We're not yelling, push, push, push. We're not, no. And when the baby's born, we don't shout out, it's a girl, it's a boy. We quietly just let the baby come to the mother. Normally the mother will reach down and hold her baby to her heart, bring her baby up to her heart. When her baby's crowning, we tell her to touch her baby, so she feels the baby's head coming through her vagina. And the chances of her having any kind of tearing are much less. And if she does tear, it's smaller. We empower the mother and respect her family. Of course, her partner can be there, and her mother-in-law, whoever she wants with her. They're always welcome in the birth room. If it feels like she's distracted because there's too many people in the birth room, we ask her, would you like us to clear out a little bit? And then, of course, we do. We can. If you look at our birth rooms, there's big glass doors in the back that are covered with curtains. We can open that glass door and the mother can go out and she can walk in the Earth Mother. We have an organic vegetable garden behind the birth rooms. She can walk in the fruit trees. She can get her feet on the Earth Mother. And this is something rare. I mean, even the most beautiful birth centers I visited all over the world, and the ones in California where really privileged, fortunate people get to give birth there in this beautiful environment with beautiful midwives, they cannot get their feet on the Earth Mother. If they go outside, it's just a parking lot. So here we really tried to design a space that would give mothers the optimal experience to be able to connect with nature, connect with spirit, and also have that backup of good medicine. This morning you met Dr. Dayu, and you saw that we have an ultrasound machine. We don't use it routinely, but we have it if we need it. Modern medicine has incredible diagnostic tools. We have a lab, so we can really read from your blood and your urine if you need some special help with your nutrition. How do we get our mothers additional iron so that they don't bleed too much? We don't want women to go into childbirth anemic, so we give them nutrition advice. And interestingly enough, we found that eating a whole dragon fruit every day will give you more iron. By the end of a week, you'll be up an entire point. If you take iron pills for a month, you might be up a whole point, but probably not. So we always look for a natural way. That's why we have acupuncture here. That's why we really try to use the obat asli, the herbal medicines of Indonesia that are most commonly used by the elder people. We've studied that and we use those. We try to, again, find our balance between the wisdom, wisely used modern medicine, and respect for nature, and then the adat, the spirit.
It's so beautiful, the work that you're doing, and so needed in this world.
Thank you. We do find there's a direct connection between giving babies a gentle landing on earth so that they have an intact capacity to love and to trust. And there's research that shows this. So if people say, oh, it's just your hippie, spiritual, yoga, whatever trip, it might be so that it is our sort of spiritual beliefs that give us these ideas. But it is backed by research. So there is science there that says that when a child is arriving on the earth gently, without trauma, that means no separation from mother. That means the family is supported and respected. So the baby goes skin to skin with the mother and initiates breastfeeding. When that happens, then we have a child that is born with an intact capacity to love and trust. When you have trauma in birth, it takes 30 or 40 years or some more just to get to where you can love and trust again, really love and trust. And we want this world to be populated with loving, trusting people, because part of what we know is that if you can love and if you can trust, you're not going to grow up and build factories that destroy our Earth Mother with pollution. You're not going to employ people where you harm their human rights and destroy their hearts and souls in getting the most amount of work for the least amount of pay. You're going to uphold these basic human rights to health, happiness, well-being, and family, and creativity. And so we want every human being to have a chance to live their optimal, loving, trusting self. And that begins at birth. Psychologists and psychiatrists for a long time said that a child was made in the first 18 months of life. And that's who you were. But the research is showing that you're made in the experience of your birth and how your mother's treated in pregnancy, but especially at the fulcrum of birth and the first hour or two of life. If your cord was immediately clamped and cut and you were put in a box and you were put aside and you were lonely and you had no concept of time. Remember, a newborn baby doesn't say, oh, by and by I'll see my mom. No. The baby's put in a plastic box with bright lights and loud sounds and the sounds and smells of strange things that have nothing to do with mother. Mother's the universe, and separated from mother, and that baby just goes into despair. The separation might be an hour, but the separation could be even days. And this baby doesn't know the difference, only despair. And so we need to protect our smallest citizens of Earth, absolutely fiercely protect them if we're going to create a lasting peace and if we're going to stop this extinction process that we're in with destroying our own home, our Earth Mother, destroying all the species of animals, including ourselves, and plants, that we need all of each other. All species need each other, plants and animals and minerals. If we can give babies the chance to live their optimal, loving lives, they're going to become the stewards of our earth and our air and our fire and our water, and they're going to be the stewards of all species.
Absolutely, they're our future.
They are our future. And what I'm looking at from these babies being born here, more than 10,000 babies being born into the hands of Bumi Sehat midwives. This is why we call ourselves Bumi Sehat, Healthy Earth Mother. And our midwives and all of the people on the staff you see here, the support people, the people who are doing housekeeping, they're part of our medical team. They keep us clean and alive and bright and happy. And from what I see from these more than 10,000 babies born with us in just a few years, I see that there's an incredible hope for the future. The parents keep coming back and saying, wow, my child is so bright. The child born here is so bright. What are we doing? What are we doing different? And I asked the mother, what was different here compared to the hospital experience you had before? And hospitals can be quite cruel. I mean, enormously cruel. And they have the potential to be wonderful. I was at Hope Foundation in Bangladesh, where they have a hospital for women and children for the Bangla people. And also the same foundation runs the hospital in the Rohingya camp, where there's 1 million refugees living there under plastic tarps. And they've all come from Myanmar. They walked barefoot. They have no way of going back. They have no future. But the hospital there is a bright, happy place. And they asked me and another midwife from Bumi Sehat, Ibu to come and help them to establish the most gentle protocols so that it would be respectful, so that the mothers would be happy to come in childbirth and have their babies safely with the midwives. Because let's put it really frankly, in this day and age, malnourishment is killing mothers in childbirth. The mother this morning, she was more privileged, has better food, but she still bled quite a lot. Some of our poorest moms, they can bleed so much. So we have to have the injections to stop hemorrhage. We have to have, every mother gets a little bitter herbal drink from Chinese medicine that usually just brings the placenta easily and stops the hemorrhage. So we then again do preventative work with natural herbs. But there are so many women dying of childbirth every day. It's like 2 747 airplanes falling from the sky every day. Every 2 minutes, at least one mother dies in childbirth. And these are not people who are sick or old. These are women in the prime of their lives. They're dying from poverty. They're dying because somehow the riches of this planet are not being equally shared. And this is where I get very political. I want these riches to be equally shared. And I'm so happy that our donors and our supporters want that as well. You know, whatever a family needs to be supported to go through this process. And sometimes it's not just a happy childbirth process. In December, there were so many premature babies, not just here, but all over the world. In Bali, the NIC units, the neonatal intensive care units, have been absolutely full since November with premature babies. And there is a study that shows premature labor is much more prevalent when the earth is too hot. This climate crisis is causing babies to be born too soon, and babies born too soon statistically will die. Many of the babies that were born too soon that were under our care went to the NIC unit, went to the hospitals, and some made it and some did not. And to help the families through that grieving process, by Christmas, we had so many mothers with empty arms. And just to drop them and not to care for them after that, some of the mothers had no money to care for their if they're displaced people. If they're here in Bali and they have a family, then they have a death in the family, they cremate within the village. And they have the village support, the family support, they have tremendous support for their mourning process. But if they're from other islands or from far away and displaced people that came here, because Bali looks like a beautiful, magical island, you know, there should be work here, right? Sometimes not so. Sometimes you can't find work here. And sometimes your wife is pregnant and you're looking for work and you're going hungry. And you're living behind a shack somewhere, not even in the shack, behind someone's shack. And if that happens to you and your baby dies, how will you manage to care for your baby's body in the proper way according to your own faith? And that's where Bumi Sehat helps, even with the dying. So we do our best in every level of life.
Very, very powerful work that you're doing.
Thank you.
It's also really about the care of mothers and acknowledging the extraordinary role that it is to be a mother, and the journey that it is to be a mother, and the importance of what being a mother is doing for our society. And one thing that I feel really sad about, which is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today, is that I'm always surprised how even in the circles of people, say in the UK or the US, if they're not like yogi priestesses, they don't often have a very good education about the initiation into motherhood. Mm-hmm. I was just talking to a friend yesterday who actually is a yogi and didn't know that, like, why women lie on their backs in hospitals and where that distortion came in from a natural position that allows gravity and your body to enable birth in a different way. And I find stories, so many stories amongst my peers of forced cesareans or just very traumatic births that then make the process of becoming a new mother traumatic, which then of course has these impacts on the child and then on our future. And then I hear some really empowering stories. A friend of a friend who just gave birth in California recently, she had a heart condition, so she really wanted to be in the hospital, but she was very educated in the birthing process and in her own initiation. So she did most of the labor at home and then went into the hospital. And of course, everyone tells her to lie down. And she was like, no. And she, gets her hands on the backrest of the bed and she's on all fours. And, her baby came out very easily and quickly. And then she watched all of these women really struggling. And without that education and also even the lack of understanding about the placenta and the idea that it's disgusting, or people that told their placentas just got whipped away and put into hospital waste, and they didn't even get to acknowledge the placenta, let alone ingest it. And I know that that's something that you've done a lot of work on, and you've written a book about it being the forgotten chakra, and I'd love for you to share.
Thank you. Yes, the book that I've written is called Placenta, the Forgotten Chakra. One of my dear, dear friends called me up many years ago and she said, I keep having this reoccurring dream that the universe is writing a book and making you do the work. And I said, yes, that's the Placenta book. Living for, it's now 29 years going on, I'm in my 29th year of living in Bali with my family. Some of my children are married here and my grandchildren are Indonesians. Some are in the United States and moving back home because they went to school here and they grew up here, moving back home. Bali's our home. I'm actually culturally Filipino. We in the Philippines and in Indonesia really respect the placenta. Probably all over the world, and my research showed that whenever you have an indigenous culture, that the placenta is a pivotal, important, not just medical waste. It's in Bali, we know that the placenta is the physical body of each child's guardian angel. So people always say they want to see angels. They should just take a look at a placenta. And this angel has a role during pregnancy to nourish the baby and keep the mother alive, hormonal support, taking the mother's nutrients and oxygen and transferring them to the baby, while the mother and baby can be totally different blood types even. So it doesn't actually share the blood supply, but through the circulatory system and the miracle of the placenta, everything the baby needs is being given through the placenta from the mother, and everything that the baby needs to be taken away, the waste, is going through the placenta back out through the mother's excretory system. So it's a miracle. It's a miracle of reproductive health. Mammals have placentas. For example, the most gentle animals, look at the deer in the forest. They eat their placenta after the birth. And mothers can have that choice. There are many cultural things. Some mothers don't want to eat the placenta. Some mothers want to with certain children and not with others. And all cultures have all intact indigenous cultures have some way of respectfully honoring the placenta after childbirth. The mother that gave birth this morning, her placenta has not been severed. It won't be severed unless she's ready, until she's ready. If she wants to go home with her baby connected, then we salt it, wash it, care for it. If she wants to have her placenta encapsulated, then we can do that service for her. And it's such a profound thing to encapsulate placenta, because you're dealing with the body of an angel. And you also get a lot of beautiful impressions, at least I do, of what this baby feels and needs. And because the angel's trying to transmit messages, I often have to stop and just send a text message to the parents and say, just so you know, I'm getting this impression from the baby's angel that this baby really is going to want to be with music. So really, whatever music that you can give this baby, I don't know what it will be. Maybe it'll be the baby will play instruments and sing. I don't know. It's just music. And for example, if there's someone in my home when I'm encapsulating a placenta, if someone in my home is playing music, it's okay if it's live music. But if it's not live music, if it's my husband playing guitar, one of my sons singing, because I live in a house full of musicians, if it's canned music, it has to be off. I cannot be in anything but a meditative space or or a live music space, and not live music right there in front of me. Just I'm off in a different space and I can sometimes hear a little bit, but I have to be in a clean space spiritually to do it. I also dry the cords, and the umbilical cord is the original Native American dream catcher. And then I use beads and feathers and shells, and I make a dream catcher. And that will be given to the family to hang where the baby's sleeping, to filter out the nightmares and to bring in the good dreams and to bring in the baby's creative intelligence from the placenta, channeling, because the placenta is still there. And remember, your umbilical cord is your connection between you and your mother. Your mother cake, the placenta is called the mother cake. And we have this profound connection between ourselves, our bodies, as earth walkers and the Mother Earth. So our relationship from the time of pregnancy through pregnancy, gestation into childbirth, and the postpartum time and breastfeeding, our relationship with our mother, how that goes, if we can have that with full optimal love and freedom of letting that gorgeous energy flow, that will be reflected in our relationship with the Earth Mother. If we have trauma in childbirth of separation and anxiety and unhappiness and confusion seems to be one of the big ones that happens in hospital birth, then our relationship with the Earth Mother will be reflected from that trauma. So that is why so many people that are earth walkers now that have had traumatic births, I feel like the good news is we can heal that. We can stand on this earth and honor her as if we had a perfect, beautiful birth experience and bonding with our mama. We can do that in so many simple ways. Like for me, when I was writing the placenta book, I realized I was born in a military hospital. My mother was completely upset because as a Filipino woman from indigenous mountain tribes, she could not understand why her American husband's culture that she had to go to the hospital and at the last moment they knocked her out and everyone was screaming and she was just trying to stay in her center quiet. And anyway, and then I was taken away. She didn't see me for many, many, many hours. And when she saw me, she was shocked because I was completely hairy from like my eyebrows down to my butt. And she thought, oh my gosh. She actually told my father, she said, even if our child looks exactly like a monkey, I want to keep her, okay? I will love her. I won't show the neighbors. It doesn't matter. I will just keep her privately and we'll love her. My father just laughed because he thought I looked great. He loved how I looked. He thought I was beautiful. But my mom was so shocked because she didn't get to receive from her birth canal. She didn't get to receive me onto her, put me right on her body and to her heart and breastfeed me. They gave her injections to stop this. So in the middle of writing the placenta book, I kind of went, oh my gosh, how can I function as a good, loving human being on this earth and honor my earth mother and honor my own mother with all this trauma? And I just sat down and I hand wrote a letter to my placenta. And I said, I'm so sorry that I was such a small, tiny, helpless baby with this consciousness that was big and wanted something else, and I couldn't have any control. And of course, that's reflected in a lot of control trips in my life. And I just asked forgiveness and forgiving myself, that profound, radical forgiveness of myself for being small and unable to be powerful, and for my family for not knowing anything different. I mean, my mother was an immigrant to the United States and she was just new in that country and it was terrifying for her. And to my father for just going along with the military medical paradigm that is not, it's not real medicine. It's not real healing. They're the new guys on the block. Those doctors are the new guys on the block. And I wrote that letter and I took it outside and I put in incense and flowers and I burned it. And my relationship with the Earth Mother, with my own source, and interestingly enough, my relationship with money changed completely. It was so healing. And it was a simple thing. I spent 15 or 20 minutes writing a letter from my heart and crying while I wrote it and then burning it in a prayerful way. It can be so simple. Can be so simple. And it changed everything. And I do feel like we are completely 100% able to heal. If we just open to it in the smallest crack, as human beings with such a container for consciousness in these bodies that want to evolve and want to awaken, all we have to do is open a crack. And it's amazing how healing birth is for the whole family. You know, we had a little girl whose parents were Russian, and she was taken from her mother from the moment of birth and wasn't seen by her parents or held by anyone for 5 days, which is apparently the standard in many hospitals in Moscow. That's how it's done there. And she would never respond to her parents' affection. She was breastfed, but she wouldn't look in her mother's eyes. She would not hug. She did not play with other children. She was 5 years old when her baby brother was born. And her mother had this beautiful, gentle birth experience. And when the baby came out, the sister had just minutes before come and stood in the doorway. And one of the midwives just smiled at her and waved her in. And she came in. And when the baby was born, the mother was holding him so tight, he was turning blue because she was squeezing him because she was afraid that we would take him, even though we said we wouldn't. And we just calmed her and we kept singing Gayatri mantra. And then she eventually started sobbing and she said, "You're not taking my baby. You're not taking my baby." And we said, "No, we would never take your baby. Even if we have to resuscitate a baby, we can do it right beside the mother or right between her legs. We don't have to take the baby to a resuscitation room or to another space somewhere outside of the mother's aura. It can be right there. And in fact, it's most effective if it's right there." And then that little girl standing there, reaching out, touching her baby brother, touching her mother, observing, watching. And then she wandered outside. An hour later, when I came outside, her father was sobbing. He said, "She came outside and she hugged me. And look, she was playing with other children." He had never heard her laughter in 5 years, and she was laughing. So her entire traumatic birth experience that was expressed all through her 5 years of childhood was completely healed in the moments of childbirth, the gentle childbirth of her brother.
Wow.
Yes. And she's had 2 more siblings since, and she's always on hand to help the midwives. She's completely bright, shining, amazing, brilliant child.
It shows how potent being connected to ourselves as nature is. And how if mummy goes to the hospital and you're being looked after by someone else, and then mummy and baby come back from the hospital, like how disconnecting that can be for a family. But if everyone's able to be there and it's able to be a natural, beautiful space and
to be helpful. You know, we put blankets under the children's clothing and we say baby blankets and we say, warm up this little bunny rug. And when the baby comes out, what's the number one first thing that you need to do for a new baby on earth is keep them warm. Even when you're resuscitating a baby, the first step is keep the baby warm. So we tell them, this is really important. So when you see the baby come out, you give the blanket to the baby, put the blanket on the baby, so that the first warmth comes from the siblings. Giving the father that profound job, or the partner, because not all of our couples are a male and a female. Sometimes we have 2 mothers. And to give that partner the job of supporting through labor, of really loving the mother, of really caring for her. And also we tell the mother's partner that when the baby's born, we believe, and it's something that goes back to indigenous knowledge, it goes back to Hinduism. I can't even remember when I learned it. I think that my grandmother told me this, who was a hilot, which is Dukun Bayi, a traditional baby catcher and healer in the Philippines before World War II and also during the war. There were no hospitals, but there were helots. My grandmother was one of those. And she told me that whatever the baby hears at the moment of birth, that is so profound, especially coming from the partner of the mother, coming from the father or the mother's partner. And that because during gestation, the baby knows the mother's voice, but more profoundly, the baby knows the mother's partner's voice, because the partner's right down here talking and singing, hopefully singing and giving the baby that love and exchanging sound. And sound is healing. At the time we're born, our hearing is our most profound sense. You know, the sense of touch is so blown out because of all the feelings of being squeezed through the birth canal, but the hearing, And then we open our eyes, and our perfect focus is from the breast to the face of the mother. We can see focus perfectly. People say babies can't focus. It's not true. But that distance from breast to face is the most clear focus. But the hearing is profound at the moment of birth. And so when you hear something, it goes deep into your soul. And that when we die, our lives pass before us, and we remember everything that happened in our lives from the present moment going all the way back to our birth. The first thing we hear is the last thing that we remember of this incarnation on this planet. So if we want to take our children to a more awakened, amazing place in the next life, we plant the seeds through the hearing, what we want to say to them at the time of birth, which is one reason we sing Gayatri Mantra, and we ask the baby's fathers to prepare something simple that they can say to their baby to welcome their child, to set their feet on a path in this life and for the next. And it's amazing what the fathers will come up with. Such beautiful, simple, loving expression that, and like my husband, I don't know what he said to my last son because I didn't hear it. It was their secret. And actually, I don't ask him. I asked one time and he said, that's our secret. And I like that. They have a secret because I have so much that I shared with my babies when they were in my womb. But for the fathers to have this profound, important initiation moment with the baby, it really helps them to become true men. One of the things I love is the Aboriginal, original Maori teaching from Aotearoa, which people call now New Zealand, but from Aotearoa. There's a beautiful man there named Tukaha, and he teaches the men how to be good fathers. And he listens to them. And when a man says, oh, my wife is pregnant, he says, okay, let's hear it from the baby's perspective. You said, my wife is pregnant. But what the baby heard was that you're not pregnant. If you're not pregnant, how committed are you? And the fathers then begin to say, we are pregnant. And the baby gets that profound shift. It's so subtle, but it's so profound. And the baby begins to feel more welcome on earth. And what my friend Takaha has noticed, and what we have noticed in Bumi Sehat from the people who have taken his little one-day workshop where he teaches the fathers how to massage the mothers, how to relax their pelvises, how to open them on all their levels and all their, we can call it in Hinduism, we can call it chakras, but just to open them. And it gets the baby ready to come through and to communicate with the baby, this profound commitment to mother and child. And when that's communicated, we find the births are easier. So let's welcome our babies in the easiest possible way, while knowing that we have to have our skills, because sometimes you hit a bump. Birth is the fulcrum of karma. And some babies just want to work out a lot of karma and finish it at the moment of birth, my most difficult childbirth, that was my easiest teenager. And it wasn't my first baby, it was my third baby. Such an interesting thing that I had such a profoundly hard, long labor for me. My first baby popped out in 4.5 hours, and I was a teenager, and it was so blissful. And then I had this, it was amazing, and I had an incredible experience having my daughter, but I had this bumpy ride with her, getting her landed on the earth. It was still at home, and it was still beautiful. It was still really what most people would call optimal. But for me, it was like a little bit like, wow. And she was my easiest teenager. She just was so profoundly done. She leads this beautiful, blessed life with not, she seems to walk this blessed path. She doesn't hit too many bumps.
I love that offering of a new perspective, because I think sometimes an assumption would be made that if the birth is difficult, then maybe the relationship with the child will be difficult.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
And we can transform that. And that same child who had this amazing, blessed life through her childhood and decided from being a village kid, going to village school, and then homeschooling herself through high school, and then going to University of Iowa and being top of her class, and then going on to become a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine and having her PhD in reproductive health. When her baby was born 1.5 years ago, there was an emergency with the placenta, and the placenta was coming off. And to save her baby's life and to keep herself from hemorrhaging, we had to surrender, go to a hospital, and have an emergency cesarean. And you know what? We call it a belly birth. And all of those mothers out here who are going to listen to this, who have had belly birth, I want to thank you for doing whatever it was that was necessary to going to the very ends of science to have this surgery and have your baby welcome to the world through your belly. This is what we call better living through science. And I want to thank those moms. And even if you feel that you didn't need it, because let's face it, at Bumi Sehat, we have less than 3% of our mothers get transferred to hospital for belly birth. And you go to the hospitals have 98%. Some have 99%. Some have 90, some have 80, but it's high when you figure that Bumi Sehat's like less than 3%. So what is the difference? We don't know. But we know that we're giving this profound loving care, including doulas on the birth team. And the mothers are having this beautiful experience, preparation for childbirth, like you talked about, women not having a clue because we don't teach them as children. We don't, they don't get to learn at their birth because the birth experience is traumatic. And so the learning doesn't continue throughout their lives. But my daughter had a very, very traumatic, potentially traumatic belly birth with her first baby. And she was able to heal it in so many profound and subtle ways, just by looking at it from a new perspective. She had gratitude because having her PhD in reproductive health, she knew what it meant to suddenly be bleeding profoundly and the placenta sliding off of inside of the uterus and the baby's heart rate dropping dramatically. So she knew that this was necessary. But again, even if you think you had a belly birth and you feel it wasn't necessary, we don't know all the levels. I don't even know if we're going to know these levels when we die. There's so many secrets. And sometimes a layer is peeled back and we can see. Sometimes I'll have a dream and I'll know something that I can share with a particular mother and baby that is a profound wondering, because we don't know for sure, but we can wonder. So you might have had a belly birth that you may feel that you didn't need, but there must be a different reason. And if we can change the perspective, we can heal that. If we can forgive our healthcare providers, forgive our society, forgive ourselves, sometimes mothers come here and the mother-in-law is insisting on having a belly birth. They don't have any way of stopping her because culturally she has power over the daughter-in-law. So we have to really forgive everyone involved and ourselves and see what happens once that profound pardon is given. Once we've pardoned ourselves and everyone involved, when we make that pardoning, then we have a chance to really move on with the healing. And my daughter's pregnant now, and she's looking very much forward to having a baby in a normal way, to have her baby come through her birth canal, through her vagina. She feels really good about it. She's actually moving back to Bali. There has been some research done in the Santa Rosa area where my daughter lives on the numbers of childbirth complications since the fires in California. So we know that climate change, we can't even call it climate change anymore. We're in climate crisis. We see what's going on in Australia right now. My family in the Philippines is experiencing the ash from the volcano that erupted yesterday, very close to Manila. And I have some relatives in Manila. And of course, some of our team from Bumi Sehat is there. But most of my relatives are in the mountains further north. So they're okay. But these are happening, for 2 years, we had Gunung Agung erupting here in Bali, and we had 170,000 people evacuated from the mountain. And we were taking care of all the pregnant families, not just the mothers, because the mothers shouldn't be separated, even in a crisis, even in a disaster zone. There's no reason to separate mothers from family, and there's no reason to separate mothers from babies. And we've proven with our disaster relief, Bumi Sehat has taken care of, I think now, over 9 disasters. We were in Aceh 3 weeks before the Red Cross after the tsunami. Padang, Jogja had earthquakes. We were in Haiti. We were in Nepal. We've helped set up birthing tents. And then we're still in Lombok. We're building in Lombok. We were in Palu after the big earthquake and tsunami and liquefaction that happened in 2018. And then, of course, we had our own human disaster in trying to mitigate the suffering of the people that had to leave the mountain, the farming people that had to leave the mountain when the volcano was erupting here. And we know that volcano is not asleep. We always know he's right there. And we know that with the Earth's crust is too warm. So I actually teach a course for midwives and doctors and nurses and doulas and anyone who's interested. I teach a course called Birth in the Era of Climate Change. I teach it with Jacqueline Aurora, who is a Native American midwife and doula. We really try to help prepare everyone who's a birth keeper to not be a victim in this time, to be useful and helpful and profoundly ready to do whatever it takes to make childbirth as gentle and respectful and safe and loving as it can be, even in tents, even when you don't have tents. We had a baby in a Coca-Cola truck in the Philippines. Somebody was driving a Coca-Cola truck, and the mother, was in labor, bending over on the side of the road, and the Coca-Cola truck driver had his baby in the tents. He and his wife had the baby in the tents in the disaster zone after the giant typhoon that destroyed 9 islands in the Philippines in 2013. And he said, "Get in the truck quickly." And he went up the road and he saw that one of our midwives was on her way to work and flagged her down. And so they had the baby in the truck. It just happened. Side of the road. You can have safe, gentle, profoundly beautiful birth no matter where. I have a friend who caught a baby in an airplane at 37,000 feet. So you just never know when a baby's going to come and when the stargate will open, and to be ready. And normally you don't have to do anything to interfere with the birth process. That in a natural, profoundly healthy world, it's going to be easy, it's going to be smooth, it's going to be gentle. But we do live in a time when our food is genetically modified. So many of our mothers are so profoundly malnourished. We have mothers that are eating white rice, which is not a natural food. It was something that was engineered. It was supposed to end hunger, but it has caused profound problems internationally. White rice with a little coconut oil and salt is not enough to build a healthy baby. And those are the mothers that are super malnourished, that are having the premature babies now, that it's too hot. When it gets too hot, those babies are born premature from the malnourished moms. We have a lot of moms with eating disorders now. And God bless them. It's so hard in this day and age because people have so many traumas. And so when a mother comes in and she's only eating fruit and she's pregnant, and she's maybe only eating 2 kinds of fruit and not getting any protein and not getting any carbohydrates and not getting the basic building blocks of life that her placenta needs to be able to nourish the baby and to help the baby be healthy, this is very hard. And we try to help these moms to see that when you come to earth, you make a profound agreement with all the beings on the earth. And some of those beings, plants and some animals and some cultures, will be eaten. And that's how you bring them up to a higher and raise their awareness and their consciousness. But that is the human agreement. For example, I'm a vegetarian. I'm not breastfeeding and I'm not pregnant. And I'm no longer having my moon cycle. So as an elder grandmother, it's my privilege to be a vegetarian. As long as I nourish my body so I'm strong enough to do my work, then that's fine. I don't need to eat animals. But I ask mothers if they can possibly make an agreement with eating eggs and eating fish, if possible. That would really help their babies to get the building blocks of life so that they can be stronger. There are ways to get, as a vegetarian, to get enough protein, but you have to really, really be aware. You have to really, make sesame gamazio and eat it with whole grain rice. And please cook at least 30% of your food, because eating all raw, your body has to build a fire inside of it and digest that food. And if you have to digest 100% of your food with your body fire instead of using the gift of fire to cook it, we have this gift of fire, and it's helped us to evolve and to have the time that we need to meditate, to do yoga, to become more conscious. If we had no fire, we would not have the consciousness we have. But if we have to digest our food all raw inside of our belly, we use up our chi. And when we use up all our chi, then we start dipping into our jinn, and then we can shorten our own lives. So we really need to think about all of these things, which are right now, we live in the most profound times. That's probably why you're doing this particular job that you're doing, bringing awareness to people. And we live in such profound times with so much potential for disaster and so much potential for healing and for awakening. It's no joke how profound these times are. I don't think any other time in history has been quite as exciting and disturbing and with so much potential.
It's incredibly inspiring and useful information. So thank you. I wanted to ask a little bit about the food, because I wonder if on one part it's about like listening to what that baby needs, but also, for example, I come from a vegetarian culture. Nobody ate meat through many generations.
Yes.
And
but you have pulses.
Exactly.
You have dal.
Exactly. And cooked food.
Yes, cooked food.
And it's the diet that's nourished everyone for generations.
Yes. Very different. Very different when it's cooked, and when it's, again, cooked with love, prepared with love. And when you have the pulses, you really need the beans, the dal. And mixed, there's dal at every meal. And then there's so many things, nuts and chutneys and breads.
Hello, this is Amisha. We are just taking a little break from the conversation here. On behalf of myself and the team, I want to say thank you for being part of creating a beautiful future. We make this for you, so that we will all have the vision, wisdom, and activism we need at this time to weave a new narrative. Can you help us with this? You can do that by making a monthly donation to the podcast to cover our costs. Just the equivalent of a fair trade banana you might eat or a chai latte you might drink whilst you listen to this will make a huge difference to us. Head to www.thefutureisbeautiful.co/community to become a monthly patron. And the other thing is to tell your friends about this podcast so they can tune in too. Send them a message or post on social media and let them know what you love about it. And whilst you're at it, leave us a review. And now, back to the conversation. Thank you for your loving beauty. The beautiful thing about this project is there's no shortage of people doing beautiful and amazing and inspiring work.
You might want to talk to Robbie Nivikila, my son-in-law. He's Balinese, and he and my daughter Lakota have done something called Pulau Plastic Island. What they've done is they've combined, my son-in-law is a very well-known musician here in Bali, music and Indonesian culture, and to stop this pollution of plastic. And they've done it by protesting peacefully and bringing the garbage to the governor's office, 50,000 young grunge rockers at a time, and again, and then cleaning it all up and taking it away and just making that statement of saying, help our generation, help us as young people have a home planet, help us to save this world. And the first island in Indonesia, this is a big chain of over 11,000 islands, the first island to ban plastic bags, single-use plastic bags, straws, and styrofoam was Bali. And it was because of our kids.
And the Green School, kids.
Yeah. Green School has been part of that, yes, yeah. And those young girls, those beautiful girls doing, they're doing this beautiful stopping the plastic bags. And so anyway, Pulau Plastic was able to negotiate with the governor of Bali, and we banned plastic bags. The plastic companies took us to court, and we won. And now Jakarta's banned plastic bags, and island by island, all the islands are banning it. So what we have to do, like, if you see over there, you see those piles and piles in my office of eco bags, cloth bags. Every family that comes here gets all these are baby clothes being donated with a good heart, but we really think that babies do better with cloth diapers, and so does the earth. And anyway, we try to get all the mothers and fathers to enjoy being more ecological by giving them eco bags, by giving them as many baby clothes that have been recycled, that are gently used as possible. And it makes it so they don't have to go out and buy new things. So we're doing our best on the environmental front. Yeah. We also have the cleanest village in Bali. We've been awarded that, and the cleanest village in Indonesia, in the 4th largest country in the world. And it's through the clinic initiatives to recycle here in our village and to do cleanup. We go on walk around hikes with the elders and with the elementary school kids to pick up rubbish on Saturdays. And it's just grown. And it's every single person in this village has taken a bit of it to their own. I mean, our elderly yoga program, one thing that the elderly yoga participants do is pick up rubbish together. And they go around distributing the cloth bags to the other people. So everyone can do some small thing. But once you open up a little bit, everything opens.
There's movements happening around the Western world. I know in the UK, which is called like the birth strike movement, which is women that are choosing not to have children because of the climate situation that we're in. We haven't done an interview specifically on this, but been really interested in that perspective. And then on the other side, which is more where the perspective that I feel personally aligned to, making my choice of, becoming a mother, which is more of a feeling that that life continues even if there's a crisis, and the children that are coming through are holding some of the codes that we need for the future. And so I just wondered what your perspective was on the choice to become a mother in amongst this crisis. Yes. And I know that in some parts of the world there's less of a choice because there isn't such an emphasis on contraception and control and right timing and getting your life perfect before you make the decision to have a child. But yeah, I'd love to hear what your perspective is.
I have a friend called Mahalakshmi. She has a lot of teaching from the Aboriginal Australian people. She's from Australia. And she has talked to me about the elder Australian Aboriginal teachers who have told her that their people are on birth strike and they're going to wait to see how it goes. 2020 being a pivotal year. And look what's happening in Australia right now. 2020 to 2021, when really our awareness is going to have to awaken. I know that many of my friends growing up, I'm 63 now, and many of my friends that are, from their 70s to their 60s or late 50s, they just chose not to have children because of what was coming. We were talking about climate change and global warming and potential for extinction. We were talking about that when I was pregnant with my daughter, who's 43 years old. When I was in my first year of college, I was a teenager, I was expecting a baby. And I really thought, and I really sat with the people of like mind and open heart, and we said, we're going to turn this around. It's not going to get that way. It's not going to get to this critical place. I thought, if I could just vote, when I was a young kid before I could vote, I thought, when I can vote, when I can express myself, when all the ideas that were inside of me that were swirling around, when I look at the sky or touch a tree or put my feet and my hands in the garden and grow food with my mother, all of those ideas and that consciousness that was being fed to me from the Mother Earth and Father Sky and from the trees and the animals and from other people, all of that, I thought, once I became an adult, I could manifest it in the world and we would each make a profound change. And some of us are. A tremendous number of us are. Your generation is blowing me away. And so I went on and I had a child as a teenager, and including the children that I got for free, as I gave birth 5 times. My husband's first wife died, so I got 2 babies for free, and they're grown people now. And then we adopted a daughter from Sumba. With 8 children, I probably have done my job not to be on birth strike, but I do understand where that's coming from. And I do think that people have to follow their own stars and their own inner knowing. I feel like that's my job as a birth keeper, as a midwife and a doula, and as a grandmother, is to really inspire others to find their own inner knowing. We don't like to tell mothers when they come for a checkup here that they must do the birth this way or do their pregnancy that way. We like to give her the information, and we like to say, how do you feel? What's your intuition? What's your inner knowing? Because when a woman follows her inner knowing, she's going to find the right way.
Right, inviting the wild in the woman.
I mean, I had a mother who's been vegan for a long time. And she sent me a text message a couple of weeks ago. And she said, I need to come see you. Something's happening. And she said, I really feel like I need some other foods for my babies. And I want to do it the kindest, most gentle way on the earth. But she said, I'm craving meat. And I said, well, first of all, let's forgive you for that. But, maybe there's some animals that are craving to be ingested by you so they can arise and they can be transformed. Look at what you can handle. And what she could handle was chicken broth. And she could eat a little fish and some organic eggs. And she felt so much better, and her spirit was so much stronger. And so we're awaiting her birth with excitement because she's going to have a beautiful, beautiful baby. So it's hard sometimes we had a mother recently who gave birth here, and she's originally from India, and she didn't have her mother's cooking, and she didn't have the foods, and she had people bringing her dolls from Singapore. You can get a little bit here, but it's quite expensive and difficult. So yeah, again, I always say to the mothers, consider eating what your grandmother would feed you. And if your grandmother is going to make you borscht, eat those beets. And if your grandmother is going to feed you a little bit of chicken in there, like my Filipino mother would always say, a chicken is just a flying vegetable. A fish is a swimming vegetable. And I would disagree with her. And I know now that she was just trying to really share with me a profound knowing that she got from her growing up as a mountain woman in her own country in the Philippines, is that she really felt like there was a certain agreement that we have. Native American peoples would call the animals to them that needed to be transformed and that needed to feed the tribes. It's difficult to find in these days a sacred space for that. But we do, because we live in the absence of the sacred. But I feel like it's awakening. It's changing so fast, so profoundly.
For sure. And just that importance of bringing our ancestors and listening to our intuition in that space of birth as a mother.
Mm-hmm. And we try to give the mothers enough space and enough continuous support. So there's this leaving her alone with her partner, and having the doula right there to support her, of having, and just little things like a ball to sit on in the birth, a warm shower when she needs it, the invitation to get your shoes off and get, be barefoot on the earth mother, get muddy. We've had moms give birth in the mud. That's fine with us. Go ahead and get dirty. The earth mother wants to pull our babies down. We get that mom whose baby is hung high and she's just not quite bringing her baby down into her birth canal. Get the bra off, get her out on the earth mother, and it's almost immediate.
Beautiful. I love that image. I can just see like this wild woman out in the mud, and just really like in that place of allowing it, and you're allowing like the noise and just
yes, the noise,
just all of it.
Yeah. And sometimes, for example, a Balinese father, when the mother starts making noises, go shh, 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 because he's ashamed, because you don't make noise, right? And he comes from living in a big family compound with 30 people that all live in very close proximity. So you don't make love with the noise. You've got to really be quiet, at least in his mind. But then when the midwives here say, let her make some noise, she just opens, and her whole body opens, her cervix opens, her vagina opens, her heart opens, her arms open to welcome her baby.
I feel like so many women in so many cultures have been conditioned to be smaller and quieter than their nature. And the invitation in this initiation to find that expansiveness in so many levels.
We can be humble. We can be small and quiet and humble in the context that it works for us. But when we need to be Durga and ride on a tiger, then we need to do that. We need to have these orgasmic birth experiences.
Beautiful. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but I'm very aware of the mothers that are waiting to talk to you. It's so beautiful here. I've spent quite a lot of time in Bali, and even just being in the center and seeing the relaxedness on everyone's faces that works here, that joy and it's very beautiful. The energy here is incredibly special, and thank you for all of the incredible work that you're doing. I know that our friends listening are going to want to support. Can you share with us how the best way that we can do that is?
Thank you, because we are an experiment in social consciousness. We don't charge. And fortunately, when
you charge the Western women,
Western women, we ask that their families make a donation. And then, of course, the poorest people, a year after their baby's born, the mango tree is in full fruit. And all of a sudden, we have all these mangoes in the kitchen, or when the ducks are laying eggs, duck eggs arrive in the kitchen. And so there's always some kind of exchange of energy and love. But on our Western moms, they do tend to give donations. Some of them actually, you have to know that there's a lot of people living away from their own countries who are indigent. And they're traveling and they don't have anything. And no one is turned away. We always say there's always room at the inn. Whatever people can give from their hearts is so accepted and so appreciated. The lab is one of the most expensive things we do, but our moms need to know their HIV status, because you need not give HIV to your baby if you have it. I have 15 HIV positive mothers who are mothers at home who have no idea that you could get that from your husband. And they're on antiretrovirals, and they're not going to give the HIV, they're not going to transmit it to their child. So they're very happy about that. You don't have to die. You can live a very long, profoundly normal life with the HIV virus. So we do have, that's one of the reasons we opened the lab, so that the mothers could relax about that and they could know and have the knowledge. It's free, confidential. And again, Westerners do give us donations for the lab. Any services, we accept donations, but it's always given freely. So we do have people all over the world that really care and that really donate. For example, one of the things that our contributors really support is this feeling for me of every single woman who works for Bumi Sehat, when she has a baby, she gets 6 full months off with full pay, and no question. And then after that, usually they get a couple more months off, because I don't want anybody leaving their baby. And then they can bring their babies to work and everybody helps. And oftentimes the mother-in-law will come, or one of their family members, and kind of help with the baby, or their husbands. You see the husbands walking the babies, and then the husband has to go to work, and so he gives the baby to reception. And it's just, you saw the children running around, and it's that kind of place. So I feel like if a little nonprofit organization that has now grown to be 6 clinics and education projects all over, if a girl has a dream to be a nurse or a midwife, or a young man wants to be a nurse or a teacher, if they want to do that, they have a family that doesn't have the money to send them on to the education that they dream of, we'll find sponsors. We'll find a way. It's not easy, but we'll find a way. And we do it together. So we just feel like we're so blessed by our contributors. We are the hands. We love our work. We like to do the work. We love that we're hands-on. I love it this morning that, when I was going to sit down to breakfast, I had to run over here in my pajamas. I'm still wearing my pajamas, by the way. And we love this work, and we're the hands. But the heart of Bumi Sehat are the contributors, the sponsors, the donors, the people that care. And we don't have big corporate sponsors. We have a few people that have businesses that help us, but we don't have a big grant from Gates Foundation, because Gates Foundation, so far, maybe later, let's hope, is not supporting these grassroots little projects like this. And there are many beautiful projects in the world, and many here in Bali, actually, that we work together in cooperation with. But we have lots and lots and lots of people who just want to share what they have. And they can go on the website, Bumi Sehat, Google Bumi Sehat. If you Google Ebu Robin, you can go to my little website, which actually, when it says donate, you'll end up at Bumi Sehat. And it can give anything. We have a lot of subscription donors now, like college students from Japan and the US and Canada and all over the world, who are just giving $5 a month. It's so cool. It's so cool. And when I'm done here, after I see the mothers, I'm going to donate money for the masks for the firefighters in Australia. They don't have proper masks that will protect their lungs and their future, and they're fighting those fires. Each in our own way, if we do something small, it's really profound. And each of us makes the whole of us bigger. I just feel like, every drop makes the sea deeper.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't wait to listen to the different podcasts from the different people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for spending your precious time with us. As always, you can find links to everything we mentioned in this episode, download our book, and discover so much more over on the blog. We don't believe in selling you things you don't need through this podcast, and so it's made possible with you, our community. If you loved this and would like to fund our show with a monthly donation or join our online group to connect with other listeners, please visit www.thefutureisbeautiful.co and click on Community and Support. Please also share with friends, hit subscribe, and leave us a review so we can grow. Those gold stars really help others find us, so these ideas can spread. Here is to us, creating a beautiful future together. The Future is Beautiful is made by an all-female team working voluntarily or on reduced rates until our listener support grows. If you have been moved by anything you heard here, please donate the equivalent of buying us a drink. All donations make a huge difference to us and will allow us to keep doing this and remain advertising free. Until next time, I leave you with this question: how will you create beauty in the world?